Yay, I'm super excited. Okay, any questions for me? Now, fourth period, it's like a blessing and a curse all in one. On Fridays, you guys have me for normal time frame, right? So fourth period really they loved it last year because they got to ask more questions and we went over a lot more stuff. And I mean, I don't teach more than I do fifth period, but you have me for extra time. So let's, take advantage of that as well. But, so interesting story from this summer. I recognize how much of an impact teachers make after one of my summer's experiences. I went for just a normal routine procedure this summer, and when I got wheeled in, the head nurse is like, "Hi, Miss Kay, how are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm really good. It's really nice to see you in this awkward situation." And then I turned around, and they turned me around, and the next nurse is like, "Hey, Miss Kay." That's funny. And then the doctor walked in and said, "Yeah, hey, Miss Kay, you teach my daughter too." And I was like, "This is so cool." So everybody knew me, and I hope I didn't say things I shouldn't have said while I was under, but perhaps I did. But it was kind of fun to see all my nurses and doctors and experience that and you will use math for that, I promise. Promise. So super fun. Okay, questions, comments, concerns, issues. Are we good? Did you all have a good summer? Wonderful. Really? What did you do?
I went to Disney.
Ooh.
That was really fun.
Like once?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
For 2 days.
Oh, it's so expensive to go to Disney anymore. 2 days is big. Okay, that's cool. Was it fun?
Yeah.
Hot?
Very.
Very hot. Okay, good. Any other excitement? I did summer school. Yeah.
Tours performed at the Sydney Opera House in Australia.
Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah.
Yes, you guys took a whole trip there.
Yeah.
Oh, neat.
With 21 plays and by the way. So.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's cute. Wow. So you got to perform?
No, Tori did not.
Oh, Tori did. Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really
She
cool.
auditioned for it and everything.
Did she really? How'd that go? It went well.
It was really cool.
I know.
That's exciting.
Big knowledge.
Anybody else?
No, not that.
I went to Maine. It was 100 degrees there.
Oh,
Like, when you think, I'm going to go to Maine, and it's going to be like glorious 50-degree weather and 70 degrees during the day. And I got up one day and I'm like, what is wrong with this place? It is so hot because there's no AC. So you are definitely at the mercy of it feels like outside right now. You can't escape it.
Wait, did you just say no AC?
There was, so think about Maine. Typically, if you think about Maine, it's really chilly all the time. 60s, 70s are a good high. So 100 degrees, you're like, I can't escape myself. And the blueberries lasted like 3 weeks less than they normally do because it was so hot, which was kind of wild. But any other excitement? No? No? Okay, we're ready to math. I was just trying to make some good conversation. All right,
Who's teaching?
I am teaching. Are you excited?
Yeah.
I think you're going to be excited about this first lessons. Normally, people are comfortable. So, this particular lesson happens to be one of my favorite to teach. And I preface it with that every year, because I think everything is my favorite thing to teach. But this particular lesson is on what we refer to as the modulus function. Okay, so it sounds horrible. It's not. It's not a bad one at all. The one thing that I do say about the modulus function is that typically it's on the A-level exam, paper 2 and paper 3. And typically it's worth about 3 to 4 points. And typically I know for a fact people can get those points. And about 2 or 3 years ago, this particular question was the only time I ever cried during an ACE exam. Like, I knew that everybody could get those 4 points. And I started walking down, and the person that I knew would get the highest score, and I walked down and I looked down at his paper. I was like, no, he's doing it wrong. And I went in the bathroom and cried because I knew if he was doing it wrong, everybody was going to do it wrong. I was like, come on. So this one, I always start with don't make me cry, okay? Because I'll say that all year long. The modulus function is what we know as the absolute value. So of course, they're not going to call it by what we know it, okay? So typically, what is the premise of an absolute value? What does it always do to numbers? Make some positives, right? It always makes them positive. If I stick -2 into an absolute value, this output returns as a +2. Does that make sense? And just for you know what and giggles, I want to show you the idea behind what absolute value by definition is. Because I think it's kind of cool and it might make some good sense to everybody. So the absolute value is actually what we refer to as a piecewise function. Who cares? I get it, I understand. However, I think it's really cool to think about it this way. So there are two options for x, okay? X could be something positive that I stick in, or x could be something negative that I stick in. Okay, does that make sense? My numbers are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, -1, -2, -3, 0 just remains 0, okay? So on a piecewise function perspective, and a piecewise function, we're going to use them a lot this year, they say this is true for this part and also true for this part, okay? And let me show you what that means. If I plug in regular x, right, when x is greater than 0, so what are the numbers that are x is greater than 0, okay? So if I think about it, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I plug in the number 1, right, if I plug in the number 1, it produces, which 1 is bigger than 0, it produces the number 1. If I plug in a 5, because 5 is bigger than 0, it produces a 5. Is everybody okay with that? The other way is when x is less than 0. Okay. I don't know where the negative came from. It really just wanted to come out. Think of the numbers that are less than 0. What are my numbers that are less than 0? Yeah, -1, -2, -3. We can have fun and do this all day, right? If I take, let's say, -5, and I plug -5 in here, what do we know the answer is going to be? Thank you. +5, right? The output that comes out will be +5. Does it make sense when x is less than 0, -5 is our example, when I plug it in, -5 produces +5. Did that make sense to everybody? If I plug in -5 in here, it produces the +5. So for a piecewise function purpose, the absolute value, our modulus function of x, whenever I plug something in, if it's positive, it stays positive. If it's negative, we negate it to make it positive. Cool? And that's what this piecewise function is all about. And so the idea is anytime I'm using an absolute value, a modulus function, my answers are going to produce my positive answers. So let me show you how this comes into play. If I have the absolute value of 2x minus 1 is equal to 3, okay? There are two ways that I can accomplish this goal. I have one that I personally like better. However, I'm going to show you both ways because you might like the other one better, okay? So the first way, and I won't tell you which one I like best first. The first way is to understand an absolute value will always produce a positive and a negative answer. Did that make sense what I just said? So it doesn't really produce a negative, but in essence, it negates itself. So I could take this stuff that's absolute value, and I could set it to +3, and then I could take this stuff that's absolute value, and I could set it to -3. Does that make sense? Because on a piecewise function idea, it could produce the positive or it could produce the negative. It will negate itself. So I am going to solve for x in both aspects here. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides. I'm going to divide by 2. I'm going to add 1 to both sides, and then I'm going to divide by 2. Let's see if these make sense as far as answers are concerned. So if I take the number 2 and I plug it in, does it produce the value of 3 that I'm looking for? Okay. So 2 plugged in is 4. 4 minus 1 is 3. The absolute value of 3 is 3. Check. That's cool, right? How about the -1? Does that work? negative 2, if I plug in a negative 1, negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3. The absolute value of negative 3 is 3. Check, that works. So the idea is that absolute value, because it's a piecewise function, is always going to produce the positive, and it's always going to produce the negative. This thing will take care of that. Okay? Now, the second method to doing this is going to be, you're going to solve understanding that what always makes things positive, I guess, is what's the one thing that I can do to something that will always produce a positive, other than sticking an absolute value around it?
Square.
Square it. Absolutely. So if I have 3 and I square it, it's positive 9. If I have negative 3 and I square it, what is it? Also positive 9. So the second method is to take this stuff, 2x minus 1, and square it, and to take this number and square it. So in essence, you're squaring both sides. Okay? Now, what does this left side, like, force me to want to do? Foil it out, right? So we're going to foil that out. Some people need to see it as 2 linear factors to be able to foil it. I just kind of do it in my head. Y'all are aware of that. You know that. That's how my brain works, right? And then what's going to be the answer on the right-hand side? 9. Okay. What does this scream for me to do?
Set it equal to 0.
Set it equal to 0 and do what with it?
Four.
Factor it, right? Foil it out, unfoil it, or quadratic formula if we so choose, right? So what's that? 4x squared minus 4x, and then minus 8 is 0. Really bad handwriting, sorry. 4x squared minus 4x minus 8 is 0. As a review from the first lesson from last year, what do I feel like I'm compelled to do before I factor it?
Divide.
Factor it out, right? What do I divide everything by?
4.
Yeah, I feel better with that too. So 2x squared minus 2x minus 4 is 0. All right, how
Isn't
we
it just x if you're taking 4 out?
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're awake. Oh, that was pretty. And then I'm taking out 4, so that should be a 2. Oh, wow. Maybe I should go home. What do you think? Takes time. Yeah. I'm not used to working this many hours in a day. That was really bad. I was just making sure you all are awake. Yeah. What the heck did I divide by? Should I divide by 2?
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty. I can divide by 2 again and make it right. All right, now, can we factor this pretty easily? If we can't factor this, we should see if Ms. K did the math right, or we should use a quadratic formula. So x and x, 2 and 1, negative, positive. So my 2 values are 2 and negative 1. What do you think? Cool. What do you think is the easier of the 2 ways? Which is my favorite? No. I don't know why. I don't know why. I know. And let me tell you why, because we're gonna start inequalities, and with inequalities, you have 2 different options. One that you make it less than, and then if it's greater than, you have to do something different. And I think it's a little bit more work. I like squaring both sides, and that's what made me cry. When I walked down, he didn't square both sides. It's like, square both sides, and you can get the answer pretty quickly. So what do you think? Good stuff, bad stuff? Yeah, so far okay? Let me give you one to try. I think it's good stuff. Because what happens if I ramp it up a little bit? I mean, I talked really highly about this stuff, so I guess I understand why you guys thought that second, like, you know, everybody should have favorite stuff in math, and that happens to be my favorite way. Okay. If I'm using the first method, my not so favorite method, over here, what am I gonna do?
Take the right side.
Set it equal
So I'm gonna take this and set it equal to what?
2x.
2x plus 1, and then I'm gonna take this and set it equal to?
Negative 2x
Eh,
negative 1.
negative parenthesis 2x plus 1.
Yeah.
Because that negative has to go all the way through. See, that's another reason why I don't like this one. Because people are like, oh, drop the negative. what would I do in my favorite method?
Square.
I would square both sides.
I see your side now.
Do you see my side?
Yeah, I'll go to your.
You like my
favorite.
side better?
Yeah.
I appreciate that. But I'm gonna show both ways, because some people are like, still like, I like this method better, you know, and I'm cool with that. Everybody needs to have a favorite in math. The negative has to distribute all the way through, okay? So there's two options here. Can't believe I made a math mistake on our first day together again. Not surprised though. That should do it, okay. Did I add right over there?
No.
What happened?
The -1.
Oh, well, what?
You didn't distribute the negative.
Oh, it's -1. For Pete's sake, Krajewski, what is happening in your brain? Well, we won't talk about that. See, that's why I don't like that method. It makes you think too much. There we go. Which one do y'all like better?
A second.
I like the second one better. Second's more fun. That's how I feel like it too. All right, are we cool? No, yeah, maybe? Okay, I knew you would be. Okay, give you one to try. So what do we think about paper 2 stuff so far?
Not
It's
horrible.
doable, right?
Yeah.
Doable, yeah. What do we do with the negation in this one?
I mean, you could square both sides.
I would square myself.
Yeah.
That's just my MO, but you would negate the second, the right-hand side, if you chose to do that first route. And this type of problem is on the ACE exam, given every year. And sometimes worth like 4 points. Okay. Alright, how'd we do? Are we still doing? Still doing? Alright, cool. Good stuff. Yes. Yes. So cool. Yeah. Did anybody use the other method? Yeah, and you set it equal to positive x plus 5 and then negative parentheses x plus 5. Okay, cool. And it worked out really well for you. Cool. Now, of course, I'm going to make it Cambridge-like a little bit, right? I always have to do that for y'all. I want to make sure we're good. Let's kind of discuss what we think might happen in this scenario. Let's see if this blue marker works. No. All my markers died over the summer.
Want me to give you some more?
I'm gonna have to get some more. They all dried out. I'm sure it's because it's hot, you know. All right, what do we do with this guy? So first and foremost, your absolute value can only be on one side, if that makes sense. You can only have one absolute value on one side. So for you to make this work, you've got to take this absolute value and bring it over there. Okay, because you can only have one absolute value and another absolute value on the other side. So that would be your first step. All right, are we cool there? Okay, so if you were using the one method that's not my favorite, how would you set each of these two up? Good question. No, no good one, no. So let's talk about how this one was set up with just a 2. So we had 3x plus 4 equals positive x plus 5, or 3x plus 4 equals negative x plus 5, right? So literally what happens to that right-hand side? You negate everything in it, right? So if you're doing it that route, and this would be the one method that I probably would use the other people's favorite over the squaring, because the squaring becomes pretty large, very large. So here you would have x plus 3 equals the regular thing. Are we cool there? Does that make sense?
Could you negate the other side though? Could you leave the 10 minus the absolute value of x plus 3 and just do, and then negate like if you flipped where
You would rather have x plus 3 on the other side?
Yeah.
And then, I think it would work.
would it be easier?
No, it's about the same. Yeah, it's about the same process. I mean, maybe. Okay, so then what? Well, actually, don't get rid of this yet. Don't get rid of this yet. Don't get rid of the absolute values yet. So that's the first one, right? And then x plus 3 could be equal to what? What's the other version of that other side? Yeah, negate each piece here. So what would it look like if I negated each of these pieces? The 10 would become negative, and then this would become, yeah, so it would be negative 10 plus x plus 5. Okay, you following my lead? Okay, now we have two equations. And we still have an absolute value in there. You guys feeling that? You guys see that? So now what I'm going to do, kind of like what you were saying, I want absolute value equals stuff. Does that make sense? Absolute value equals junk. So I don't like the negative here, so I'm going to bring the absolute value over here, and I'm going to take this simpleton over there. You could do it, You can bring it to the other side, or however, as long as you kind of clean it up. So this is x plus 5 absolute value equals 10 minus x plus 3. Are you guys cool with what I just did? So this would be 10, I'll show the work, minus x plus 3. So it's absolute value of 5 equals 13 minus x. So literally what we have done is we've taken the absolute value and made it a positive version on the other side, taken the absolute value, made it a negative version on the other side, okay? So what would this guy over here look like if I was to clean it up? I'm gonna keep the absolute value on the right-hand side just because it's positive. So it'd be x plus 3 plus 10 is absolute value of x plus 5. So what would this side be? It would be absolute value of x plus 5 equals x plus 13. So what do you think happens now? Good question. Very good question. What do you think? What do you think happens now?
Absolute value of x plus 5.
Exactly like we started in the very beginning of my lesson, right? So your options here are take absolute value of x plus 5 equals positive and negative version of that right-hand side, or what could I do to both sides if I so chose? Square it now. Okay, so you can only have absolute value of something equal junk, square it, or negate, make a positive and a negative version. How many answers do you think we're going to have in the end? 4 answers. We're going to have 4 answers to this. Okay. How many are choosing to square both sides? A couple of you? And how many are choosing to go positive and negative? Okay, I'll set it up both ways, just in case, so you guys can see it. So, how many times have I seen this version on an ACE exam? Probably twice. Probably, out of all these years that I've taught this. But I would be doing you a great disservice if I didn't at least show it to you. Yes?
Why does, when you move the x plus 3 over, why is it x minus 3?
When I move this over?
Yeah.
Okay, I took this and brought it over to the left because it was negative, and then I took this and subtracted it. Oh, it should be positive. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yes. Good catch. Dang, that screws it all up, doesn't it? Good catch, good catch. There. Sorry. We would have got 4 answers, but one of them would have been wrong. 2 of them. Okay, so if I'm squaring both sides, looks like that. Or if I'm doing the other version, how do we set them up? We're good? No? Yeah? How many answers did you get on that left-hand side? one answer. The squaring should work. There's your 1. And that doesn't work, right? So there's like a no solution in that part. And then over here. Hmm, 26x. Oh. And then 13 squared. With 1, 69. Making me work for my money
This
here.
thing.
What?
How did you get positive 1?
Here?
Yes.
Or this one?
No.
Okay, here. X squared plus 10x plus 25, 49 minus 14x plus x squared. The x squareds cancel, right? I added 14 here to get 24, and I subtracted 25 here to get 24. It should be 1.
Okay, got it.
What, did it, right?
Yeah, I got it.
It's plausible that I made a mistake in adding and subtracting, but. And I did that one in my head, so I don't know how pretty that is. Was that number right? 144. They went in evenly. Nice. And then over here, so 5 can't equal 13, so that one's out. Okay, they both work. So these two get rid of answers, there's your final result. 2 different ways to accomplish that. Which one do you guys like best of the 2? Squaring or solving?
Square.
I don't know. What time do we get out of here?
51.
Okay, I'm good. Tomorrow we'll keep going and having so much more fun. So what do you guys think?